first few months I really struggled. So that was quite a challenge to break in anything new, you know. But taking time, take time. It's a sketch for the picture Harper with Paul Newman. So yes, you know, I have to make this sketch to show the director, you know, so he can go in and build the set.
It's astrology, but obviously without much success.
Any astrologers in particular?
This one is from Wild Bunch, by Sam Peckinpah, the director.
For the most part, you really had to work on everything. We just didn't question what they gave us, we just did it.
He's got some incredibly beautiful drawings for an unrealized Warner Brothers motion picture that was meant to be a musical that was influenced by Salvador Dali. Very surreal, very unusual colors. He was trained to be able to do anything, and he could do anything, and he followed his assignments, and his assignments were to be flexible, innovative, and work to the service of that screenplay. And that's what he did.
I hope I haven't inconvenienced.
Someday he'll come along, the man I love. Thor! I'm sorry, baby. He needed you, maybe, but so do I, Jim.
When you look at work by Tyrus Wong and some of the other really, talented motion picture illustrators, they almost end up making the look of the movie because they're the ones who are getting the first crack at it and saying to the director, here's a group of concepts and here's a group of ideas. Do you like this? And sometimes people would really get hooked on the visual that they were seeing, and that would help dictate what the atmosphere and the environment would actually end up looking like.
I have more fun over Warner Brothers than Disney because they pick a lot. Sometimes I go down to visit where they paint the backgrounds and so forth. One of the guys said, how's the food, at the cafeteria? I said, I don't know. He said, well, what do you know? Did you work in the cafeteria or the restaurant? I said, no, I work in the art department. He was surprised. Yeah. He said, you work in the art department?
Every once in a while, Jack Warner say, hey, we've gone 2 or 3 years and to go all these shows in a can, why am I paying this big staff? And he shut down the studio for 3 or 4 months.
Tyrus was loaned out to Republic Pictures on occasion and worked on a number of John Wayne movies.
I just remember him telling stories more recently that Republic was really bad, that they weren't very nice to him.
The very, very first day, the head of the department, he come in here. He said, he introduced himself. He said, you know what he said? I'm a Swede, you are king. I was shocked. I was really shocked. I couldn't teach my hair and everything like. I find it dawned on me. He called me a king.
How were you able just to keep on going?
Well, because you had a family to support. Yeah. We had 3 girls. They made one for daughters. That's my greatest achievement, see. When we're looking for a house, you look at me, you know that we're, Asian. She said, oh, I'm sorry, the house already sold. And then a month, 2 months to go back there, the sun is still there.
In Los Angeles, deeds were allowed to say no blacks, no Chinese, no Jews, no Armenians. I mean, this was all utterly explicit.
The Chinese for a long time could only live in Chinatown. It wasn't until 1948 that the laws were changed that someone who was of Chinese descent could own property in the state of California.
Before he moved out to Sunland, he had the realtor go knock on doors of the neighbors and ask them how they feel about a Chinese family moving in. Because if they don't want us to move in, then, you know, obviously wasn't going to move there. They both said, no, we don't have a problem with that. We have Chinese friends, so I moved in. Not the whole neighborhood was that way, but those two people were.
Once we moved out to Sunland, of course, we were far removed from any Asians. So once a year, we'd go to the Chinese Congregational Church.
I think in those days, they wanted you to meet other Chinese kids so you might marry another Chinese kid. Somehow that didn't click. When they sent us to Chinese school to learn Chinese, I was so bored, I didn't want to do it. I think I only got to page 9 in the book, and I was over it.
One time, we walked as a family up into the town of Sunland, and I remember a car driving by, and they yelled out some sort of racial something. I remember my dad just turning around and giving them the finger. I don't know, there was Tying or Kim and said, well, what was that? And I said, oh, they were just waving at us. My dad always taught us, and my mom too, that whatever you do is going to reflect on all Chinese. And so you have to be on your best behavior. One of the driving trips that we took when we were in a motel, they'd always have us clean up, you know, not make the bed, but at least straighten it up. Because they said if we make a mess, they're going to think that all Chinese people are messy. I think my mother was very good about keeping us occupied so that he could do his art. And I think she was very supportive that way, you know, that whatever he had to do had to be done, and we weren't to bother him at that time.
He did work a lot. I mean, when he wasn't working at the studios, or even when he was working on Christmas cards, so he was working. He'd go to, after dinner, he'd go work. I don't remember that he spent a lot of time with family.
Well, we can look at more things maybe you haven't seen in a long time. Something else which I think you may have forgotten.
When Tyrus was a student at Otis, one of his classmates went to work for the Winfield Pottery in Pasadena. She asked Tyrus if he would paint dinnerware for the company. In the early post-war period, they developed a style of home decor called Chinese modern. And Tyrus's dinnerware would fit perfectly in a home with that style. This style of painting, it's like watercolor. You can't go back and correct it. So every stroke is the first go. It's not just skill, there's something really beyond it, is skill and inspiration.
I was still working at watercolor, you know, at the job. Sometimes I paint on Saturday or else at night after I threw with watercolor studio, one of them paint till, you know, till about 10 o'clock at night or something.
This came from Mark Peterson in Fort Worth.
Well, those things really travel.
You're all over the place.
You know, I didn't realize I'd done so many of them.
There is in Tyrus's work a grace and an ease that made his work really accessible to a large part of the American public. It's clearly from another culture, at the same time doesn't seem strange or foreign. I have seen it dinnerware in advertisements for silverware, where what the ad is selling is silverware, but the dinnerware is Tyrus's painted work. So you know that his work was seen as part of the American experience.
Yeah, do you remember any of this? This is the New York Street.
Oh, yeah.
And,
hey, I can remember that thing.
yeah, well, this theater right here was they used in Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about the same.
Yeah. I was hired by Warner Brothers around November of 1964. And of course, I was the new kid on the block. Remember that? The first person I got to know was Ty. Ty was really a mentor to me. Vincent Price. Around 1967, Jack Warner started negotiating to sell Warner Brothers. And he sold it to 7 Arts. And in so doing, there was a big layoff.
My desk about here.
Yeah, right.
Got a painted up because
And you had a gallon of water about here with all your brushes.
yeah, right.
With fewer films shot on the lots, the studios began to downsize all their departments. Studios were making deals with independent producers, and it was up to the producers to hire their own production staff. So consequently, you were much more of a freelancer than you were before. Ty never got into that. Ty took the layoff and never really came back to the studio.
When you look at this work, it's kind of remarkable that one person is actually responsible for that body of work.
This is basically we can move on, It's I'm not interested anymore. Even if I wanted to ask me to go back there, I don't want to go back there. If they ask me, it doesn't mean anything to me anymore.